In this movie we're going to look at how to create a curved window, and by curved window I mean one that has curved glass and curved frame and curved sash, as you can see in this little image here. Now this is a 7-step process. Draw the temporary wall and guidelines. I've done that here. Draw the 2D, draw the 3D, draw the wall hole, convert it to a symbol and make some adjustments, incorporate it into a WinDoor object, and then place in the wall. Now, the first thing you need to do here is to create yourself a piece of wall and draw some guidelines that indicate the extent of the window. And this little setup here needs to be completely symmetrical, so that the angle of this line is the same as the angle of that line. And I'm assuming here that the window is going to curve through 90 degrees. So both of these lines are at 45 degrees. Now I'll be using the offset tool quite a bit, and the first thing we need to do then is to just create an arc that is at one of these radiuses here. So we'll take the arc tool, and in 3 points mode, let's just click on 3 points along this arc. That's created an arc for us. I'm going to set the fill for that to none and just pull it out there for a moment. So we're going to use this quite a few times. The first thing we need to do is to create what's going to be represented here as the sill, this white part that you can see here beyond the actual frame and the glass. I will be using the duplicate in place quite a bit, and in Vectorworks you'll need to have this allow option click or alt click in place duplication. So I'm going to alt click or option click on this arc to duplicate it and then drag it back to this point here. Now let's look at the offset tool, and one of the functions of the offset tool, if we click the preferences button up here, is this option here, close open curves. And when you have that option checked and you offset anything, but in this case an arc, it's going to create a fully closed object. So you'll see what I mean. So with this selected, we click OK. We still have our arc selected. You can see that up here in the object info palette. So I click on the inside of the arc, and you'll see that it has created what is effectively, if I give it a solid fill now, you'll see it's created that part of our unit. So the next thing we want to do is to create the actual sill component of the frame. So again, we are going to duplicate this arc here, alt option click on it, drag it back to here, and I want to offset this 110 millimeters back from the outside face of the wall, and I'm going to use the offset tool for that again, but I don't want this option on yet. So I'm going to turn that off, click OK, or change the distance 110, we want that. So let's assume the frame is 100 millimeters, so we'll set this now to 100, and we need to turn the option back on in here, close open curves, click up here, and that's going to create our sill. Again, we'll give that a solid fill. Now I'm going to assume here that there will be a sash. It doesn't matter if you can leave out the sash if there isn't going to be one. The next thing I want to draw are the jambs on either side. So let's just zoom in here until we can see this side. We'll take the rectangle tool, and in this mode here, which is 3-point rotated mode, click, click, and then pull this out here, and the frame is going to be 30 millimeters, so I'm going to type 30, hit enter, and then click. and that's created the frame, or the jamb I should say. Let's beef that thickness up a little bit so it looks a bit nicer. So we also want one of these over the other side of the window. We can use the mirror tool for that in mirror duplicate mode, and here is the center line of our unit. So I click and draw a line straight down, and when I do that, you're going to see that this got duplicated over the other side. Alright, so we'll maintain that zoomed in view. Again, I'm going to duplicate this, drag it back to here, and then, well, I'll just eyeball this. Let's say that our internal sash is going to be at this point. So we only want this to come to the actual jamb there, so I'm going to resize this and snap it on there, and resize this and snap it on there. That again, there we go. So let's say the sash is 30 millimeters thick, so we'll take our offset tool, close open curves, click up here, change this to 30. Alright, so that can be the sash. And again, let's go in here with the rectangle tool and create the actual style. Zoom in there a little bit, pressing the Z key to do that. And let's say this is 30. So we've got that. Give it a thickness that we might want. Zoom out a little. Let's mirror that across to the other side. Okay, so then we'll just want something that represents the glass. So again, we can duplicate this, Option Alt click on it, drag it up to here, and let's zoom in and just eyeball this somewhere in the center there. Now we're then going to have to adjust the length of it at each end. So again, pick this up, snap it on there, go across the other side. I'm using the arrow key to do that. Alright, so that looks like we've got our 2D stuff pretty well sorted out. Now we're going to create the 3D stuff, and to do that I am going to create a copy of all of this by drawing a marquee around as much of it as I need. I don't want the main sill, in other words this part, I only want the frame stuff. So holding the Option Alt key, just going to drag that straight up so that we've got it there. Alright, so beginning with the sill, we'll be using the extrude command, which has the keyboard shortcut Command or Control E on Windows. So let's say the thickness of the sill is 40 millimeters. Next I want to extrude, I'm just going to send that to the back so I can more easily select this here. There we go. And this. We're going to extrude those jambs. Let's say the window's 1500. These are going to be something like 1450, but you'll see we'll actually adjust those. And let's now do the same with the styles. Extrude those. That size will be alright as well. Let's create the bottom member of the sash. We'll extrude that to 30 millimeters. Okay, we're making progress. Now this is still an arc and we want this to be the glass. I'm going to pull it back down this way a little bit because I'm then going to offset it to create some thickness in this member by 6 millimeters. So click here. Okay, so that's a polyline now. Let's give that a solid fill. Let's check that I gave that a solid fill as well. I didn't. Okay, and let's extrude the glass. 1400. So now let's group this just to make it easier to edit. Modify group, and we'll switch to a front view, and if we choose edit group, we can then switch off the other stuff in the drawing, show other objects while in edit modes. We can turn that off, and if you're not seeing that little icon here, you can add it by choosing that option, and when I click it, you'll see everything else is going to disappear. Alright, so we've got the basic components here of our unit. Just going to move the glass up a little bit. That is our bottom of our sash, and this is our frame here. Now let's say the window is 1500 high, so we're going to want to duplicate this and move it 1500. So let's start off by duplicating it, and I can snap it on there. Then I can use the move 3D command, move 3D, and move it 1500. That's going to give us an overall height of 1500. I can see that these frames here still have that original thickness, so I'm going to set that back to 0.13. A right ISO might make this a little clearer. So we've now got our jambs. They were extruded as a single object. We've got our head piece and we've got our sill piece. So we can add solids on those. That's going to create a single object for those. We'll now do a similar process for the frame. Jump back to a front view. And this was the bottom part of the sash. Click, hold the option key, drag that up there. There's the top part of the sash. And you can see a handle at the top here. I can then drag the styles, I should say, then select the top and bottom parts and add solids. Set that line weight back to 1.3. And finally we've got the glass. We just need to pull that down to the correct position. Right ISO, fit. I can see that there's a little gap just here. That's because my jambs weren't quite high enough, but no problem. This is a solid addition now. We added them, remember? Double click to enter that. Select this, which is an extrude. Take the reshape tool and you'll see a handle will appear, and I can then drag that up and make sure they nicely overlap. So the next thing I want to do is to make sure these are in the right class. So this is the outer frame, so we're going to put that in the WD frames class. It's going to take on the class attributes. Same with the glass, WD glass, and that has a transparency set to it, so it's become transparent. And finally, if I can select it, there we go, the sash, this wants to go in the WD sash, sashes class. So there's our window, looks pretty good. Let's exit out of the group, go back to a top view, and I'm now going to put this back on top of this object here and ungroup it. You can leave it grouped if you want, but I tend to not group things that are going into a symbol. Okay, so there's one final 3D thing that we have to define, and that is the shape of the wall hole. In other words, this is the hole that's going to define the cutout shape. So we'll utilize our last remaining one of these, and generally you want to make this oversized, so you're going to draw a shape that goes from 100 millimeters beyond the wall to 100 millimeters the other side of the wall. So that's going to be 270, 370, 470. So let's take our offset tool, set it to 470, click up here. Okay, and then this needs to be the same height as the overall height of the unit, which was 1500, so extrude that 1500. So that gives us everything we need to make this into a symbol now. So what we can do is to select all of those pieces, not the wall and not the guidelines, but everything else, and we go modify, create symbol. Now if you want to put this within a WinDoor object, then the symbol name has to start with WD hyphen, and then you can call it whatever you like. So call it round 90 degree, whatever. Now let's look at this. We do actually want to define the insertion point, which has to be in the very center of the unit. Actually, I'm going to back out of this now because I want to draw a guideline in here so that I know where to click. So just zooming in on this a little bit, let's draw a line from here to here, and the insertion point is going to be the center of that line, and we're going to have to click on that point. Alright, so let's select this all again. Create symbol, and we definitely want to have insert in walls. We can leave an instance in place, choose next mouse click, click OK, and then we want to click on this point right here, and we now have that symbol. So we're now up to the process of cleaning up or adjusting the symbol. The first two things we're going to do is to delete this little guideline we drew, and then also move the 3D wall hole object into the wall hole group. Now you need to do this from the symbol placed on the drawing. Don't attempt to do it by editing the symbol in the resource manager. So double click, edit 2D, click edit, select the line, hit delete, exit. Repeat that, double click this time, edit the 3D component, and we want to select the wall hole object, choose cut, exit the symbol, edit the symbol again, this time go into the 3D wall hole component, and you want to paste in place. And so what that's done is to put all of the components in the correct locations. So currently this is just sitting on the wall, the symbol is sitting on the wall, so we're going to move it off the wall and then place it back on the wall, which will see it inserted into the wall. But there's going to be another issue that you'll see, and I need to just make this wall a little bit longer to see it. So let's now grab this and pop it back in here, and you can see that when you put a round or a symbol into a round wall, the symbol wants to make this kind of cut here, straight up from that outside point on the wall. So we have to create these little filler pieces within the symbol to counter this. In 3D, the wall hole object is doing its job fine, which you can see here. So that's all working well. And note that this is sitting down on the ground, which we want it to be when we're going to put it in the WinDoor symbol. So we'll just jump back to where we were. So we need to draw these two little pieces in here. Now, the best way is probably what I'm about to show you, is to just draw some guidelines. We've got one guideline here, which is this. So we need another line that represents this edge of the wall, and then a little piece of arc running through there. So let's do that second line first. And now we'll draw that little piece of arc. Take the arc tool by 3 points. Let's click there, there, and there. And I've just extended that. So we've got these overlapping objects. So what I want to create is this little shape in here. So if I take the polygon tool in inner boundary mode and click in here, I should get that little piece, which I do. Don't need that, don't need that, don't need that anymore. And so this we need to give the same attributes as the wall, and we also need to hide this line here. So being a polyline, if we double click it, you'll go into edit mode, and using this final mode up here, which is hide or show edge, we can click on this edge to hide it, and that will hide that edge so it only has these two lines on it. Next we have to set the line color back to black, and then we have to set the line thickness to, I think it's 0.35, no, it must be 0.25. And the fill to match the wall. Okay, so we now need to put this into the symbol. So I'm going to cut it from there. And we can then try and pick up the symbol here, which is a bit hard, so we'll just do it from up here. Right click, edit 2D component, and let's zoom in here, paste, and we want to put that little piece right there, and we want to replicate that on the other side so we can mirror that. And you'll see we've now got that little piece there on both sides. Exit the symbol, and what you want to do now is to set the symbol in the wall to have no caps. So we're nearly there. So let's now, you can leave it at that if you want to and adjust the height using this height value here, but if you want to put an ID or use any of the data fields in WinDoor, then it's a good idea to put this within a WinDoor object. And the way you do that is to take WinDoor, just drop a WinDoor object there, click the settings button, and click custom symbols, use symbol geometry replace all 2D and 3D geometry with symbol 1, and we'll choose the one we just created, which is that one. Click OK, and you'll see that WinDoor, this is saying a WinDoor object, but it's actually not creating its own internal geometry, it's using the symbol for the internal geometry. So we can get rid of that out of the wall. Finally come up here and place this in the wall again, full break without caps. And then you can use the controls here to adjust the height. So currently its elevation is using to the sill of the frame, and the elevation is at 0, so if we set that at say 600, and then we go to an ISO view, we're going to see we've got our unit in the wall.